Hello everybody, welcome back to Thiege's Notebook Review. I'm your host, Joel Michael. What I have for you today is from Lenovo. This is the Y720. Yes, it came out last year, but this is the best deal you can find on today's used market with the GTX 1060 GPU. What we're going to find out in this review is whether or not this bargain is going to be good enough for you. And if you guys have ever wanted the opportunity to support my efforts here on YouTube, well, now you can. Just go to these places and download these two tracks. Just $2. That's a great deal, right? All right, on with the review. This then is the Lenovo Legion Y720. This particular notebook was purchased used and contains Intel's Core i7-7700HQ CPU from last year that has 4 cores, 8 threads, and 6 megs of L3 cache that clock up to 3.8 GHz, mated to the NVIDIA GTX 1060 GPU with 6 gigs of GDDR5 VRAM. This guy has 16 gigs of DDR4 memory and just a 512 gig NVMe SSD. This all sits underneath a 15.6-inch 1080p almost completely matte IPS screen, and it's all powered by a 4-cell 60-watt-hour battery. Despite its unique shape, the battery life of this notebook trails to competitors, lasting for just over 2.5 hours streaming video and about 3 hours working while browsing the web. That isn't even trying to keep up with the competition. The AC adapter for the Y720 has its fair share of heft, nothing you shouldn't expect from a gaming notebook of this caliber, and of course it comes with a short from-the-wall cord, making for about 7 feet of total length from notebook to wall socket. I would put a longer from-the-wall cord on my shopping list if I were you. The best thing about the Y720 is the price. Since it's a year old already and the Y730 is just around the corner, you'll be able to find these used for about $1,000. That's a pretty good deal given the competence of the internals. Let's see what all those holes in the side do. On the right is Thunderbolt 3, dual-link DisplayPort, 2 USB 3.0s, HDMI, and Lenovo's signature hardware reset button. On the left we get a lock slot, DC in, gigabit LAN, another USB 3.0 for a total of 3 standard USBs, and a headset in. Only 3 USBs is a shame for a notebook with plenty of space for a 4th, but at least there's Thunderbolt for future external GPUs in case you don't want to give in to the upgrade cycle in a couple years. Also, it would be well advised to get a USB hub with an included SD card reader. Just saying. The smooth plastic top features a braided edge design with a big ol' red Y that subtly lights up. I can dig it. What I don't dig are the oil stains, which can take some elbow grease to lift. The palm rest around the keyboard is a comfy matte plastic that readily collects oil. Expect a compelling desire to wipe down the entire inside surface after producing a paper, especially the keyboard and touchpad. It gets pretty gross. The finish on the keyboard keys will last, but I can't guarantee the labels will stick around after a few years. The body of this Lenovo looks good at first glance and feel, but doesn't quite hold up to scrutiny. The construction is rather solid overall, and the keyboard won't flex under regular typing, but you can bend the palm rest away from the bottom cover under the touchpad with your thumbs. What makes this very disappointing is the fact that the Y720 is one of the heaviest 15.6-inch notebooks I've reviewed, if not the heaviest. And weight is sign of reliability. If it doesn't work, you can always hit it with it. Stripping off the bottom cover is also a weird experience. There are 11 screws that you should remove with extra care for a few reasons. One is they're not all the same length, 2 they're rather cheap and the heads are easily worn, and a third reason is because the outer screws are fitted at an angle. If you want to upgrade the RAM and hard drives, do it as seldom as possible. At least it pries off with a simple tool with little effort. In other news, the entire bottom side does get naked, and what we see is a fair amount of copper. The big metal cover in the middle is a static shield for the memory, which is held in place by metal grips. This Legion laptop is without a 2.5-inch drive and didn't even come with a caddy. That will have to be purchased on the side for about $20. At least the installed Samsung NVMe drive reaches 2 gigs per second in read speeds, which is quite enough, I think. And the afterthought of a battery just sits however it can. Replacing it isn't very easy, but I'll call it user serviceable nonetheless. Typing stuff with this notebook is pretty sweet. Lenovo spent a good amount of time picking out a keyboard. The keys melt under your fingers with excellent feedback and a muted, throaty click. The F keys are function keys first, hotkeys second, and there's even a little button that records everything on the screen thanks to Lenovo's baked-in software. Lighting up the keys is novel the first time you play around with it, but with only 4 color zones you'll definitely look like a wannabe at the next LAN party. The hotkey toggles between 3 presets and off, but the brightness isn't adjustable, though there are breathing and heartbeat options. I left my presets at 3 different homogeneous colors with no added effects. And finally, the numpad is a love it or hate it affair. At the very least, it will take a lot of getting used to, but I will admit I love how the arrow keys are home, end, and page up and down. The touchpad doesn't suck. It doesn't have physical keys, but other than that, it's alright. The movement is predictable, subtle motions are picked up rather well, and multi-gestures work when you want them to. It does have a red trim, but at least it's not backlit. It can be disabled via hotkey, and right-clicking is remarkably forgiving. So if you forgot your mouse on your business trip, you won't have to fret before you wake up, because you're a gamer. Business trip. Enter your atypical, cheap 1080p IPS laptop display. This is the 3rd laptop I've reviewed that has this kind of screen, and the story hasn't changed much. The colors don't distort at an angle, but the brightness fades at a close angle, much like your average LCD screen. There's virtually no light bleed, and the colors run a tad on the warm side. It gets 2 ticks over comfortably bright, and as low as comfortably dim. All in all, it looks fantastic for a laptop that costs around $800, but for what you pay for a Y720, you're getting the shaft. At this price point, never mind about 120Hz, you should at least be getting less ghosting and more brilliant colors. I'm surprised that Lenovo didn't market this as having a built-in motion blur engine. Sure. JBL speakers are the trumpeted noise blasters for the Y720. To put it nicely, they absolutely lack bass, but make up for it with volume. Added software pulls bass tones into the treble range and mashes it all together, making audio sound a little muddy overall. So the bass in Rage Against the Machine's Calm Like a Bomb is clear, and the bass in A Perfect Circle's The Package is audible, but when the exciting parts hit, it's kind of a letdown. To be clear, you could do a lot worse, though when it comes to digesting media, headphones would be nice to have on standby.
This is a test of the webcam on the Lenovo Y720. I have about 6 LED lights facing me right now, so this is excellent lighting. It is a little bit grainy, but I'm not overblown like I have been in webcams of the past, so that's pretty cool. Motion is actually half decent, and of course there's Mr. Burr. Is the microphone in stereo? I don't know. Is it? That's a test of the webcam.
The system performance of this Lenovo leaves nothing to be desired. Keep in mind, I'm cheating a bit here with a Samsung NVMe SSD that reads at up to 2 gigs per second. Of course, anything over 500 megs per second is just gravy. This is still a lot of gravy, and it is noticeably faster. After a prolonged period of use, the CPU fan will stay on with a low hum indefinitely. Not that it's bothersome, but it is something to note. On to gaming. How well does the GTX 1060 fare for playing games? Very well. All modern titles should reach 60 frames per second in 1080p with mostly max details. Witcher 3 still skips a few frames with everything turned up, excluding the hair engine. Rise of the Tomb Raider is the same story, but like I said, take a couple things down a peg and you've got yourself a flawless 60 FPS experience. PUBG will naturally demand a bit more eye candy, be toned down. Anything about 2 years old and beyond can't challenge the 1060, plus a couple other games like Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch. Overall temps are kept in the ideal range for your lap, but the surface temps are atrocious over the numpad and general vicinity. When running the Intel Extreme Tuning benchmark, the CPU never throttles, but does get to about 90 degrees. When the fans kick in, they won't be very noticeable if you're using the speakers, unless you've activated Lenovo's Extreme Cooling function, which runs the fans as fast as they can possibly go. It's a neat party trick, but it won't help the uncomfortable surface temps. Definitely the most novel novel part of this notebook is that the Legion Y720 gives battery life the middle finger and fully powers the CPU and GPU when not suckling the wall juice. Sure, it doesn't last very long, a half hour if you're lucky, but still, it's pretty neat. For the bottom line, the Lenovo Legion Y720 is a stylish gaming notebook with high-performance specs and a smattering of creature comforts. The Core i7 GTX 1060 and keyboard are the high points, while the touchpad, display, and speakers don't quite belong in this higher price point. Fortunately, the aforementioned flaws can easily be overcome by using it as an under-glorified desktop. That way, you'll also have something to carry around when you need to, even if it's a bit heavier than average with a poor battery life. Oh boy, let's just move on. In conclusion, students get 2 thumbs and a big toe down. It's expensive, heavy, has poor battery life, and the only thing it's best at is playing games. I know you're going to buy one anyway, but I gotta warn you, classmates with Ultrabooks and Macs are going to give you dirty looks, and they're gonna be justified in doing so. Ugh. Casual gamers will feel right at home here if you can extend your budget for one. There are cheaper notebooks available with lower specs but better price-performance ratios. It's the truth. Competitive gamers are who this Lenovo Legion Y720 was designed for. It's cheaper than a notebook with a GTX 1070, still has plenty of capability, and will drive an external 120Hz display as soon as you can make up your mind as to what details you can sacrifice. Don't forget that it also has external GPU capabilities, something to keep in mind when the RTX 2070 GPUs become affordable. Desktop replacement users will love this notebook. It's got the power, it's got Thunderbolt 3, and its fan noise is not relative to a tropical storm, like most thin-in lights. If you can swallow the price tag and use external peripherals for everything, this is your jam. Are there better notebooks than this one? Sure, but if and only if they have multiple PCIe slots. If I ever see a non-gaming home user with this gaudy piece of gaming chic kit shit, I will bitch slap the piss out of them. Why? Why? Why would you pick this? It's huge and heavy. No, just no. This has been a review of the Lenovo Legion Y720 gaming notebook. Give me a thumbs up if you like the review, ask a question down below, and subscribe to my channel. And if you're feeling particularly generous and you want to support my efforts here on YouTube, go ahead and download my tracks off of iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. Links are in the description below. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a good night.